people are going to do what they do. They're going to criticize you, whatever you do, right? So, for example, innovators back in the day also didn't care about people. That's how you have to be.
Yeah.
So, you must shut down and you must stay away from gatherings if you have to. Stay away from people if you have to. Build what you're building.
In today's episode, we have a game changer, Hamad Ali, just a 27-year-old entrepreneur from Hyderabad. Since school, Hamad understood that if small businesses succeed, India succeeds. Why? Small businesses employ over 100 million people and contribute 40% to India's GDP. In this space, Hamad noticed a gap. Small businesses, restaurants, and cafes were finding it difficult to go digital. It was simply too expensive. So he crafted a solution. A solution that usually costs over 60,000 rupees is able to get it down to a price point of only 6,000 rupees. In our conversation today, we spoke about what are the key mistakes to avoid when starting a business, the importance of identifying your customer and building a solution that's tailor-made for them, the importance of being honest with yourself, seeing something is not working and perhaps pivoting and changing direction into something else. Lastly, what facilities are available in Hyderabad to help you and guide you in the right direction. Check it out. So what we'll start off with is just give us a little brief about your story, where you studied, how old you are, what's your education background.
So I'm 27 years and I basically did my schooling. I was born and brought up in a town called Jeddah in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And then I came to India to do my bachelor's in commerce. And then I studied my MBA in finance from a place called Osmania University.
Okay.
College affiliated to Osmania University.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Coming to the business, it's a startup that I started in 2021. Idea was conceptualized in 2020 and then registered the company in 2021, where I started searching for co-founders, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Awesome. So since you brought up the topic about your business, I want to understand a little bit about what was that first spark that led you to create this company? What was the problem statement that you're looking to solve? What was the issue that you looked at? Were you always an aspiring entrepreneur, or it's something that came across a little bit later on?
No, so while I was in school as well, the primary aim was always, I was organically, naturally bended towards entrepreneurship. Even at school, I used to always think about how to sell stuff. If the canteen was selling stuff, how much margin they had, how they were making it, what was their supply like. These are some of the things that I used to keep discussing with my friends. And so, but the idea was, I really got into understanding that a lot of people had a problem in India in starting their own business and they needed a little bit of capital support to be able to do it. So I actually didn't know anything about crowdfunding at the time, but I kind of discovered it organically, then learned a little bit about the industry in itself and started this company by the name of Frihbi. And we were primarily like a crowdfunding / investing platforms where people could run campaigns of the products or the idea that they had. People would fund it and then they would prototype it and send the first prototypes to their then customers. So that's where the idea began. And then we took a couple of pivots. So now, we recognize ourselves as a business operations and also like a point of sale system / like a marketing AI tool to help businesses operationally survive and grow with the help of AI and marketing tools.
Okay. So you said you help with the software when it comes to point of sale?
Yeah.
Okay.
So our target audience is people who are not very aware of software usage in itself. So there are a couple of people, there are certain niches in India. So the niche that we're targeting, it's a very huge TAM, but these people, they're not very aware of how to use the software. So we've made it very user-friendly, very affordable, and that it serves a huge market and creates opportunity there for us.
So that is through credit cards and stuff? Is that the...
No. So primarily what we do is the bill and the KOT. Whenever you visit a cafe or a store, our target is right now into restaurants, while we are also aiming at retail and stuff like that. But you get a KOT, which is a kitchen order ticket. Sometimes in QSRs, you have to give it into the kitchen and you get the bill as well, if it's a GST bill, so on and so forth. So for any business to be regularized, they need a GST bill.
Okay.
And the customer, is legally obliged to get one. But most of the businesses in India, they're unorganized. To get any loan, to understand the financial dynamics of their business, they need to have a GST registration.
Right.
And so that is something that, we're pushing forward.
Okay.
While we're also helping them promote with customer database that they can use to promote on, WhatsApp, using the customer database, and also with the help of AI, generate campaigns to be able to retain and again retarget those customers that they have.
Awesome, man. So to just for me to get this straight, one is that you're looking help local cafes and restaurants modernize their
Yeah.
IT systems and stuff to help
Yeah.
coordinate with their back end and then with the taxation and all of that. And also you mentioned something about e-commerce.
Yeah.
So is that another place that is a vertical for you?
So primarily, we also bring them online by creating their own digital menus that can also be used as promotional tools,
Okay.
where they can, treat it as a landing page, because essentially it is that. It is a website, the digital menu. The customer needs to have internet access to be able to place orders. So then they can use the same on like coupons and pamphlets, so on and so forth. But our primary target is to really bring everyone online first and start using this software that's going to regularize them. An average restaurant in India that has like 15 to 20 tables needs to put up a very huge infrastructure in terms of getting the hardware on, like the CPU, the printers, and then an inverter in case the light goes out.
Right.
So it's going to be like a 50, 60,000 rupee investment there, and another 10,000 to be able to get the software. Our whole solution is 6,000 rupees, right?
Wow.
You have an Android device, you get up with our software, you get a printer, which we provide within the 6,000 range,
Really?
with a couple of, roles as well. And very specific to the industry, in the Horeca industry. So we're making sure that all of your needs are served within a very limited budget and very easy to understand. So even the staff that's not very learned or educated would be able to use it without any hassle. So that's our aim.
You said you started off with crowdfunding,
Yes,
right?
correct.
So, and it seems like it evolved quite a bit from there
Yes.
into what it is today.
Yeah.
Now, I want to understand what made you realize that you need to pivot
Right.
from that aspect, and what were the challenges that you found in the crowdfunding space, and what were the, let's say, the pros that you found in this particular space that made you pivot?
Yeah, for sure. So the crowdfunding space, was with the ideology that I want to empower businesses to start something on their own. While this pivot is about you've already started, here's the next step. This helps you organize your business,
Okay.
right? So how this journey came about was I started into the crowdfunding space without knowing a lot about TAM, about what's my market segment like, and this is some of the mistakes that any entrepreneurs that really want to get into business should avoid. So when you're coming up with the idea, I really, suggest to all of the entrepreneurs to first test it out, to put it out in the market. And even if you get traction, then go back to the board and study how your TAM looks like. Because in a bigger TAM, the mistake can be, of a bigger stance, and you're still going to be forgiven by the market. But the smaller it gets and the more niche you get, it's not as forgiving. So I started with this segment, which was very exciting for me, crowdfunding,
Sure.
because I thought it would work out.
Yeah.
But then I realized the limitations of it as well, like how many people would actually fund ideas. So the crowdfunding segment in India is huge, but in charitable organizations with people need, help with billing their, footing the bill of their hospitals, so on and so
Right.
forth. But the innovation side, so
On the western
on the Western front, it's not as huge.
Right.
So even some of the companies from the West have tried in India, but they're not working as well. Kickstarter, for instance.
Yeah, okay. Different
They-
market altogether.
Yeah, so they're working in Bangalore, but they haven't scaled in India.
Okay.
Because firstly, India में कोई मुफ्त पैसा देगा नहीं, right? Unless and until you promise
very risk
the
averse.
product, right? So very risk averse. And secondly, the economy is not at a stage where people want to push for innovation. They want to push for utility. This is what we realized.
Acha.
And in the starting, when I came up with the concept, I hired people from top Ivy League schools and colleges to be able to develop that. This was 2021 phase, 2020, 2021. So we aimed for funding, spoke to a lot of venture capitalists, almost got our term sheets and logged in the funding as well. But then we realized at some point of time that the traction is not as strong as we expect it to be. And anything that the consumer needs to be educated about needs very huge capital, which is not recommended for a startup.
Right.
So then, and it was something that I was interested in doing, in educating the customer. I wanted to make an impact quickly. So then I pivoted into the website creation side of it, because we already had a seller's profile. We pivoted into creating websites for these sellers that they would then, with the help of SEO, promote and get users, and really turn into an e-commerce kind of a platform.
Right.
We create e-commerce websites for these people, and they get buyers in turn, where SEO is also happening. There are a lot of players locally here as well, like Dukaan, so on and so forth. There
Like
was
a
Bikai,
Shopify.
like a shop. So Shopify is a huge player
Right.
in this space. Again, that works out because they're from the Canadian and the North American market, but not so much in India. Shopify isn't as big. The Dukan is really huge here.
Right.
But from what I've heard, they also face problem in retaining customers
Okay.
because the customer is looking not only at the creation of a website, ठीक है वो तो आपने कर दिया है, but what next is you need to get the customers that they need buying from the platform that you've created. So they're looking for a wholesome solution where you're not only creating their website or e-commerce front, but also getting them customers to buy from that front. Now that gets really challenging.
Yeah.
So then we took the pivot from providing a wholesome solution to businesses that have already figured out how to sell.
Okay.
What we call a banya in India, they've already figured out how to sell. Right? Now smoothen this out. Help us retain customers that we've already sold to. Help us retarget customers that we've already sold to is a much more calm and I think very expanding market here in India. And I really think that that's where, my focus should be. And that's where it is right now.
You know what? That's incredible because what you're trying to say is that you've pivoted 2 times, that means.
Yeah.
One is at the crowdfunding level.
Yeah.
And second is you've gone away from setting up an e-commerce website sort of situation.
Yes.
To being somewhere at the heart of transactions and ordering and connecting customers to vendors on a recurring basis.
Yeah. So with both of the first two pivots, it was always B2B2C. So we're serving both the businesses and the customer. But now we're just serving the business in a manner where they can better their operations.
That sounds quite inspiring.
Thank you.
The fact that you've persisted on.
Still at the starting,
Yeah, sure.
of the race.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to understand about the market and really get.
One of the special things what we like to promote versus other podcasts is that we really want to. Most people go and pick up people who kind of made it and stuff like that, but people don't understand the struggles, the pivots, the challenges, the ups, the downs, and we want to really bring that to the forefront. That's one of our key USPs of the podcast itself, and one of the big aspects is mental health as well.
Sure.
So when you were pivoting from point A to point B to point C, did you ever feel like, you know what, forget this. This is not for me. I want to quit. I'm down. Like, what is your way of like hanging in there? What is your framework to, pick yourself up again and keep going? Because I think a lot of people struggling with the same issues.
Yeah.
And they don't know when to stop or, are they really right for it? Are they not right for it? They find that difficult to answer as well. So just help us with understand, your framework that you use to like, to say that this is not working. I've tried this. I'm not so emotionally attached to it. And I'd like to move on to something else, which I think has a better opportunity there.
Yeah. So personally, I mean, I was always very emotionally attached to it. So again, that's exposing yourself to a lot of mental pressure, so on and so forth. And I also hired the wrong kind of people. So when I say wrong, I don't mean in a sense of operation or their excellence in performance. Just that they wanted things to scale up very quickly.
Okay.
In the starting phase of things. And then I realized later on that the atmosphere that you build around yourself is dependent on people that you're working with. So you always need very light-hearted people to work with.
Sure.
So if you take things too seriously, they're going to start getting to your head. And also a lot of comparison because the startup news is full of, somebody picked up $1 million, somebody picked up $10 million on a very basic idea, just off of a sheet. So that's going to affect you. Of course, it's going to affect you, but again, what are you looking to build? Are you looking to build value? It's going to take time. Of course, it's going to take time. And it's a lifetime commitment. So I would, suggest if anybody is watching this, that, there's always a lifetime commitment to it. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. Before I started my tech company, I was into food for a while. I was into other things for a while. I started an academy of my own, ran it successfully. And then during COVID, I shut it down and got into tech. So there's always ups and downs, but you need to have the right set of people. Personally, the kind of challenges that I went through, I was in immense pressure when we hired a lot of people at the beginning front of it. And so in 2021, we were after funding and we wanted to get funded. But as soon as I started pitching to a lot of investors, I realized that it's not about getting the funds in so much so. It's not where my interest lies really. I want to create real value in society. So just trying to figure that out. And also the people that you're working with have invested a lot in terms of their skill set, in terms of their hours into working towards a concept that you've been working on. So pivoting is also very hard.
Right.
This is one aspect where it's not just your decision, right? you have to be able to put it across the board in such a manner that they don't feel disrespected. And I think that's the right kind of fit, to find the kind of people who can say, okay, hey, we've been working on this for 20, 30 days, 4 months, 3 months, whatever. But now we don't think this is working out. Let's pivot quickly to another angle. But a lot of people aren't ready to have that conversation. So then putting it across is going to put you in jeopardy, but you have to be able to figure it out. If they're not ready to hear that conversation, let them go. But just stick with what you have and persevere. My only thing is that you're going to go for ups and downs, stress. Har cheez hone wali, 100% you're going to go through it. But you have to persevere.
So there's a lot of patience that's
A
involved.
lot of patience. And
There is a lot of being true to yourself. I think that's something that
Yeah.
you tend to remind yourself why you started. And I think that's one of the aspects that sort of
I
keeps you
think
going.
you're also going to want to give up at least 5 times a day when you're starting up,
Sure.
every day. But then you have to also have the right kind of people. So in my case, my family was very supportive of what I was doing. They had a very strong belief in what I was doing. And, it's been an upward journey from there on. So
Okay. We will come back to those aspects in a little while. I just want to get back to the business and ask you two things. One is, you said that you have to identify the TAM
yes,
before you get in.
Yes.
And you probably want to do a POC, a proof of concept,
yes,
right? Before
Yes.
you probably go full in and stuff.
yes.
Now, what are the solutions that are out there that'll help entrepreneurs or help people who are looking to perhaps do a bit of a test, on a focus group or something before they kind of go out into the market? Is there anything that's out there in Hyderabad?
So one of the things that, in Hyderabad specifically, there are a couple of organizations. I've been lucky to have been selected in one of the cohorts of this organization by the name of T-Hub. And so they have this initiative that's named Lab 32. And so you apply for it, you get selected, they expose you to a lot of market opportunities. They also expose you to the right kind of mentors in getting you the right access and giving you key points on how to form distribution, which is very important for any business.
Okay.
So they help you 2x, 3x your sales
Okay.
and also help you figure out if your product is fit for the market. So product market fit is very important for any business. And T-Hub has realized that how we're going to guarantee success to these startups is help them figure out their product market fit. And so they really help out startups in that case. We've been part of a cohort
Okay.
and we've been exposed to a lot of great founders who've already been there, done that. And that's been a great journey. So for anyone in Hyderabad looking to, really jumpstart their careers in startup or trying to get a company established, you should head for T-Hub and get yourself into any cohort or get yourself into that ecosystem. It's also very warm and welcoming there. So you're not going to get a lot of resistance from people.
Are there a lot of mentors and stuff?
Yeah, there are a lot of mentors when it comes to all sorts of, walks, whether it be sales or marketing or technology or the concept. There are a lot of mentors from various spaces there. And as I said, they're very welcoming. That's the best part. So you won't feel, the need to actually feel a little embarrassed about going to them or anything, which I've seen a lot of other spaces or, digitally or otherwise have that, but T-Hub doesn't. So that's a great space.
Awesome.
The first part of the question I forgot.
Yeah, no, that was the first part.
Yeah.
The second part I have is, you said you are a master's in finance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you eventually pivoted into a tech company. So how does a guy from a commerce background get into technology?
It's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a lot of people who are out there who
yeah,
are from different walks of life
so
and stuff.
in the startup ecosystem, like it's gonna be amazing, and this is an amazing question for you to ask. So the core of it was never technology for me. It was just to be able to have a bigger distribution, get to a lot of people, and technology is the way to do that, right? So I never, got into the depth of learning how technology works. Hire the right kind of people who know technology and learn from them is the way I went about it. My, skill set is in forming a business, getting the management right, and also understanding how to manage people. So this is my forte. My strength is in understanding what people need and building a team and keeping it together
Sure.
while they execute the vision that I have for the company. But in the startup ecosystem, very interestingly, you'll see a lot of people who've done different things come together. So I think technology as a whole is a very interesting concept for anyone to experiment with, whether it be tech or non-tech. But I think that's where the world is headed, and you need to really adopt to it.
Right. So I can imagine that if you're hiring, then you obviously need to have that much capital to perhaps pay those salaries and stuff for a tech?
That's a great question as well. So anybody that's looking to get a very good salary out of you, avoid them.
Okay.
So anybody who's very up there, highly skilled, avoid them as much as possible. This is again a mistake that I've made. You get to connect with some of the best minds, but they're at a later stage of life. Maybe they're looking at getting the right kind of salary. The talent pool you want to look for is again desperate people like you who want to make it, who are not looking for a salary, financially little stable. They don't have a lot of responsibilities, but they're looking to really expand and work on an idea. And somebody who believes in your vision.
Sure.
So even to this day, most of the people that are working with me don't have a lot of aspiration in terms of huge salaries. They really want to see the company progress. And then that's going to happen naturally as an effect, if and when. So you don't want to look for people who want huge salaries, because that's a mistake. If you make, you're going to burn out very quick. That's a mistake that some of the funded companies make. They burn out their funds very quickly.
Yeah.
And that's just sad.
Right. So you said in terms of hiring, you want people who are more aligned with your vision.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that it's not money driven, but it's more purpose driven. And that's how you've been. It seems that like you've really inspired and motivated a lot of people around you, which is why they've kind of stuck around in many regards.
Like very big words. I wouldn't give myself as much credit, but they've kind of believed these are people who always wanted to build something on their own.
Okay.
So everyone that works with me at this point of time always had a vision that they want to build something on their own, a startup, but they now need somebody who has the vision already to be able to do so. In terms of hiring the right kind of people, again, like hiring overly ambitious people can also be a poison to your mental health.
Sure.
Right?
You're find the right balance.
Yeah, finding the right balance is very important. So, for example, people who want to get to 1 million, MRR.
Yeah.
In a span of 2 months,
Yeah.
without having a product market fit. So those are the kind of people that you're gonna find most probably. That are very ambitious, and if you get into business with those kind of people, you're gonna have a hard time. So it's best that you wish them the best luck and that they do it on their own. You find people who are a little more stable, who can work out the errors that you're finding in your business, help you understand the market, and then grow in it. This is the advice that I would give to people.
So sorry, I just keep going deeper and deeper into some topics and stuff. Your team, they believe in it. Does that mean they also have a stake in it?
Yeah, so that's very important. For any founder, you need to have co-founders. Because again, how much stress can you take?
Sure.
You need to delegate that, and somebody needs to be of an equal stature or a little here and there, but people need to be able to share the responsibility. So I personally believe if you have most of the share of your company, you're just self-employed, right? You're not actually running a business, because there are certain elements. So for technology, tech needs to have a good chunk of the business, right? Operations at a later stage can have, but in the starting, you can wear different hats.
Okay.
But tech, a tech guy, a sales guy, and a management guy is what makes a firm, right? Traditionally. So if all three have some kind of stake in it, then it's gonna, I think, turn into a successful venture.
So it's basically your co-founders who have a stake, but not the rest of the employees.
The rest of the employees need to have a stake as well, but not as huge as the co-founders.
Okay, now I just want to zoom out a little bit and talk about, where's the whole Indian online space, e-commerce space heading? Are there any statistics that you have that you can talk about what we are at today and what we can be 5 years or 10 years down the line?
Yeah, so I mean, there are two aspects that's really helping the digitalization of India. First is UPI. UPI played a big role in, getting everyone used to having an online payment system. And the second aspect of it is Geo, right? That's how it is. So they democratized internet for everyone. So, for example, it was very limited to Tier 1 India, all of the businesses in the early 2010s. But, later on, internet and data has become so cheap now that internet accessibility has penetrated a lot of these Tier 2 towns as well. And the buying power is increasing year on year. So these are people that are going to help you better your product. They're going to connect with you. So I would always recommend anyone to start with Tier 2. Because these people are going to be early adopters and they're going to connect with you and help you understand how to better your product. But if you're already working with Tier 1, audiences, firstly, they're not going to forgive you because there's a lot of options in Tier 1 cities. And secondly, they're not looking to participate in product growth. They're looking for a solution.
Right.
And so when you're starting up, it's better to have people who can get into and also contribute to your product solution. I think tier 2 India is the place for anyone to be who's not raising capital and who wants a good traction and to understand product market fit. Because that's where the adaptability is growing at a very huge rate. Tier 1 is very limited.
Thank you for watching so far. We've got some more things lined up, so stay tuned till the end. We'll be talking about the funding landscape in 2023. We'll be talking about still the mental health challenges that's next. And we'll be having a quick rapid fire round that is inspired by Karan Johar, of course. And you'll get an insight into Hamad's mindset about all things. It's been a fun episode. Hope you've enjoyed it too. Continue watching.
So with the internet, I think in India is one of the most challenging consumer markets on the globe. So you have to understand that people, order stuff in, use it and return it back. This doesn't happen in a lot of places on the planet, right? So, and the COD concept here, right? Everybody wants everything cash on delivery. And Indian consumers, if it's priced 30 in the retail market, they want to get it at 25 when they're shopping online, right? Of course, the price comes low with, less warehousing and all of that. But most of the companies today, whether it be Amazon or Flipkart or Jio, they're in huge losses. Why? Because they just want to retain customers, right? They're selling products at a cheaper discounted rate, less than procurement for them.
Sure.
So they're actually acquiring customer loyalty and they want to justify it with LTV.
Right.
This is the same with SaaS companies as well. If you want to survive and thrive in India, your customer's going to pay back when the time comes. But first, you have to prove that you're actually worth it. And this is very different from global markets. Like, for example, in the West, people pay up when they're sold on the concept. In India, people pay up when they're sold on the concept, have tested it, used it for a year, and now they know you by your first name. So that's how complex the market is. So
Yeah, that's a very good point. I have a follow-up question to that. You said that's how you get the loyalty. That's what they're Amazon, the Flipkarts and stuff,
Yeah.
bring on the LTV, right?
yeah,
And they're hoping that the customers stay on and that therefore they eventually make money down the line somewhere
yes,
down the
yes.
line. Are customers actually loyal?
So studies and data indicate otherwise because there's a lot of companies that have gotten huge funds. So the bubble that burst open in 2021 proves that customers aren't as loyal as people expect them to be. But again, I mean, I don't think it's fair to put the blame on the customer. It's the companies that are making this huge mistake, right?
Right.
Maybe for an Amazon or a Jio or a Flipkart, it's justified because they're creating a habit that's hard to move from. But, while it might be controversial, what's a Zepto doing? Getting your product to you in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Spoiling the customer.
So spoiling the customer, but the customer is okay. They can wait for an hour as well.
Right.
So what's it going to do when they finally jump up the prices, when that funding starts drying up?
Yeah.
That's when you're going to get to know the customer's true nature.
Right.
Because free में मुफ्त में मिल रहा है तो who would say no? Right?
Yeah.
So, but this is also not very healthy for the economy or for the country. Because huge funds, external funds are getting pushed in with, good exit strategies and founders that are Ivy League. But what's it going to do to the consumer? In the end, the plug has to be pulled.
I guess you're right. This isn't very sustainable, but India is welcoming all the cash that is coming in.
Yeah, true. But till 2021, it was very welcoming. But then the global markets also start realizing, and the whole globe took a hit. I mean, it's not just Indian entrepreneurs who did this. It was all over the West as well with the crypto and everything going on with the NFTs. Like people got huge funding in from sovereign funds, so on and so forth. But even in the public and private markets lost a lot of money. So yeah, a lot of things are happening even with Baiju's and so on and so forth now.
Okay, so you just spoke about funding.
Yes.
I want to get a bit into that.
Sure.
Have you got funding?
So I haven't. We've been bootstrapped and I feel at ease right now because I'm also operating on a level where rather than, trying to go for scalability, I want to first understand my margins best and then go for scalability. Every entrepreneur has to go through scalability, raise funds. That's a must. But again, not as somebody who hasn't gotten any revenues. You need to first get the revenues in so that you can convince the other person. At least this is how I would like to operate. Some people are very good sales people. So am I. But I didn't want to raise because, again, that would put immense pressure on me, as it has on many founders.
So
to again get into revenue.
What would you say to entrepreneurs who are or aspiring entrepreneurs who are in the sort of similar space or just starting up and stuff, and everything that sort of flashes on their YouTube or the television, it's all about funding, and you've got Shark Tank that talks about funding constantly, and they're almost like starting a business to get funding rather than actually solve a problem, perhaps.
So I have very strong opinion about Shark Tank. I think it's a very toxic place to be, firstly, right? Because Shark Tank, what it does is it kind of strips you away from your integrity.
Mm.
And this is a very strong opinion. Of course, it might have promoted the startup game, but you can literally see people who've come on Shark Tank, and there are people sitting on the judge's bench that know that they're from the same space. And this guy says, I'm from the same space, so I'm not going to invest in you. And the rest of them are like, ye mera dost hai, so I'll also not invest into your space. So what kind of situation are you putting yourself into? Right? So firstly, you're on television, and then you're exposing yourself to people who might be your competitors, because these guys are exposed to a lot of spaces. And also it's more like Indian Idol, or more like, very dramatic in nature, where people are getting insulted, and then those insults turn into memes. But what's actually happening with the person who got insulted at the moment?
Sure.
You need to think of that as well, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're exposing yourself to. This guy, Ashneer Grover, for example, what is he doing, right? He's a toxic person who's just, venting his anger out at people. And everybody appreciate that because it's entertaining in the end.
Right.
Like a Big Boss or Khatro Ke Khiladi or whatever.
Yeah.
In the end, it's just a show that's meant to entertain people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Catch
So-
eyeballs.
Yeah, and catch eyeballs.
A lot of drama and stuff.
Yeah.
So, just coming back, I just want to understand, when do you think is the right time for a person to go out and look to scale, or to get the funds to scale? Should someone try and do it early on? Should we do it, let's say, when you have the POC established?
I think once you have proof of the ability to generate revenue, and you've started generating revenue, you're growing at a certain X rate, then maybe you can value your firm based on 20-25x, whatever the industry standard is, as per your segment,
Okay.
and then raise a funding where you calculate the returns that you'd be able to give, and also create an exit strategy where, you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Right.
Be realistic, right? So if you can accomplish 3x, at max aim at 4x. What startups are doing is 40x. So that's not healthy for a founder or for the investors. While they're investing into equity, they're losing money. All right, they're into the game where they invest into 90 startups, 2 succeed, 88 fail. But the 88 failed founders, the mental pressure that they go through is intense. Because now you've raised, you have people to answer to,
Right.
right?
You're a boss.
You have a boss. So why did you start your business in the first place if you haven't figured out the economics
Right.
of how you can make sure to keep everyone happy? Your employees, while you scale, while the burnout rate is okay, make sure you generate revenue. I mean, top line needs to be there.
Yeah.
To be able to expand. And also expanding is very expensive, is what I've learned through the journey. For everyone who's expanding, it's expensive. So what you're doing here, figuring it out at scale and figuring out that your unit economics positive is very important.
Okay. Got it. And what would you say about the funding landscape now? Things have changed since 2021.
They have immensely. I mean, thank God for that. I shouldn't be saying it. I'm in the startup space myself, but the free fund flow has stopped.
Yeah.
Now, if you're generating X amount, again, they're calculating how much you can generate in the coming years based on various factors, variables, and you can raise funding. And
Sort of evened out the
it
playing
evened
field,
out.
right?
The market is correcting itself.
Right.
So that's what was needed, and the market's doing exactly that. But in 2021, there are a lot of people who raised capital and have burnt it out. And now the investment is, again, the market is going through a recession. So it's
Sure.
correcting itself. The fund is always there in the end. If you want to raise, if you're, let's say, not profitable, you have a top line, you're always going to get people who want to fund you. But without that, in today's day and age, not in India, I think globally, the capital game is going down a little bit.
Sure.
So, for example, I was watching this podcast again, Nikhil Kamat's podcast, and I learned that in India, there are only 2 startups that raised about 50 million in their first round this year. So that's a very low number.
Very low compared to
Yeah,
previous
compared to previous in 2021
years. Sure.
when everything was happening.
Sure.
And they were like exaggerating TAMs and stuff like that. The research wasn't being checked back then.
Got it. So I just want to rewind back to our mental health dialogue that we were having and stuff. The stress, the emotions that we all sort of go through. On top of that, you have India as a special place because we have a lot of societal pressure out here as well. You know? Maybe in the West, where entrepreneurship and innovation is encouraged and people are rooting for you. Over here, on the other hand, people sort of pulling you down and saying, listen, take the safe route. So there are two aspects. I know you said that your family's been supportive, but let's say you've got a family that's not been very supportive out there. So how would you try and advise those people to kind of navigate those challenges?
Yeah. So I have a very strong opinion about this. Again, while my direct family supported me, I know a lot of people who've thought about what I'm doing here and maybe I should consider other options. And there's always extended family, so on and so forth, that's always looking to put you down, specifically in India.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of people who actually put you down that way. But again, there's this dialogue from Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen what cheers you up and I've seen what makes you clap. So your boos mean nothing, right? So look at the problem with the youth in India is usually they don't.
That's a good one.
Usually the youth in India doesn't care a lot about what their relatives think. But when it comes to what they think about them, it affects them. So if you're being, again, like that's, put the responsibility back onto yourself. People are going to do what they do. They're going to criticize you, whatever you do, right? So, for example, innovators back in the day also didn't care about people. That's how you have to be.
Yeah.
So, you must shut down and you must stay away from gatherings if you have to. Stay away from people if you have to. Build what you're building. And if they're saying it, acha hai, what difference does it make? If their cheers mean nothing to you, if the other things don't mean anything to you, this shouldn't mean anything to you as well. If it is meaning something to you, then you are giving importance and power to these people to affect your mental behavior. You should revisit the board and think about what you're doing in life, right?
Okay.
So this is what I think personally.
So, okay, ignore the naysayers and all those people. What if it's your immediate family, like your mom and dad and stuff? How do you create that dialogue and communication with them
Right.
for them to also feel at ease?
Right. So you try to talk to them. You
Yeah.
try to make them understand, right?
Yeah.
But to be very honest with you, be it any business, nobody is going to understand what you're trying to do.
Right.
And people are going to be somewhere in between. They're going to try to understand and try to be empathetic with you or sympathetic in India.
Yeah.
But they're never going to understand what you're actually trying to achieve. Right? So with your direct family, I think the best approach is batao, if not avoid. That's the best way to do it, right?
Okay.
And once you accomplish, then you go back to them and tell that, this is what I've been trying to do. But in my case, fortunately, that this hasn't been the case. They were very supportive. But if they aren't as well, you're an entrepreneur. Most of the time, you don't spend with your family anyway. You're going to spend time. If you're spending a lot of time with your family, again, you're doing something very wrong because you're not building business. You should be spending most of your time building that business, then spending time with your family.
So, what's interesting from what you said is, it sounds to me that you have to be an incredibly positive person.
Not just positive, be a little bit savage about what you're doing is also, I think, very important, right? So this also comes from a quality of understanding that people are going to try to keep putting you down, right?
Like persevering.
Yeah. So keep persevering. If you're losing, you're losing. Don't try to pretend that, okay, this was somebody else's fault.
Right.
You made a mistake, you lost. Pick yourself up again and win. People who've been winners, they didn't make, any excuses. Because nobody gets supporters. Like, if that was the case, everybody would have done it. As said, if it was easy, everybody would have done it. But
you said you pick yourself up and stuff. But tell me again, how do you manage that? Like, how do you keep stress levels down? Are you going to the gym? Are you trying to work out to bring it down? Who are you talking to? How do you deal with this?
I think, like, as simply put as it is, like, just talk to yourself and, like, working out isn't going to help you relieve any stress. Talking to your family isn't going to help you do anything. Because in the end, the kind of vibe that you put out is the kind of response that you're going to get in the end.
Right.
Right? So if you're very focused, people are going to think you're eccentric and not talk to you at all. Very good. If you're not focused, if you're asking for advice, you're going to get like all sorts of advice. Right. What are you going to do with that? You're going to mess up your head. Right? So in the end, what matters is, rather be eccentric or a little mad about it, be borderline mad, and do what you're doing, right? Success or failure at your own terms is the nectar of life, if you ask me. Like, that's very important.
Yeah, I think you're right. You have to be a bit of a savage, I think.
Yeah, and the mental health dialogue as well. Like, put yourself above everyone else. Put your interest above everyone else's interest, and you'll find that your mental space is very good and taken care of. Delegate stress if you have to.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I think that will be helpful to a lot of people as well. So I just want to go through some general questions, maybe again of Hyderabad. You answered some of them.
Yeah.
If again someone is starting, looking to start a business in Hyderabad, what support or platforms are available? There is T Hub you mentioned.
So this T Hub,
Yeah.
is one of the, I think it's one of the greatest incubators, if not the greatest in India.
Okay.
And this is an initiative by the government of Telangana,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very meritocratic.
Mhm.
It's very democratic in its nature as well.
Mm.
So if you approach and present your idea at whatever stage, you're gonna find an ecosystem that brings you up.
Okay, so they can support you with mentorship. They can support you with funding,
With every
connect you
like
with the
if
right.
you're at a stage where you require funding
Okay.
and you are a fundable startup, they're gonna push you there. If you're at a stage where you need to find your product market fit, they're gonna put you into cohorts where you can find the product market fit, and then again push you towards funding or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go on to a bit of a lighter note now.
for sure.
So we've got a quick fire round,
Amazing.
and I've got a bunch of things over here. And if you answer them well, then we've got a little prize for you. It's a bit
Oh,
like
wow.
Karan Johar's
I didn't know about
quick
the
fire
prize,
round.
and now I'm gonna try my
It's not a
best.
big hamper, but we've got this little dark chocolate,
Oh,
healthy
wow.
dark chocolate for you.
Looks amazing.
So we got this.
My heart can really use some good chocolate.
Okay, fine. Right? There's no competition here, so
Yeah.
we rest assured. Okay. First question. If you had to trade places with a Bollywood actor for a day,
Yeah.
who would it be and why?
Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay.
Simple, right?
Imagine which startup jargon do you think is overused and why?
Funding.
Okay.
It's not a jargon, but it's very overused.
Mhm. If Frihbi was a song, which Bollywood track would it be?
Hmm. Tum na mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're offered a free billboard in the middle of Hyderabad. What would it say?
What would it say? I mean, again, it has to be a punchline, right? Expand your business with shop top. As boring as it sounds, it's always taking me back to
Okay.
business. Yeah.
Aliens land in India and want to buy something from Frihbi. What's the first product you recommend?
I would recommend that they first let India know that they're here,
Okay.
right? And find a safe spot, because firstly, like, as soon as they land in India, they're gonna get like exposed to a lot of scamsters.
Okay.
So no, that's just I don't actually mean that. Just playing to the stereotype. That's all.
Nice. Your autobiography would be titled?
Made it.
Which Indian dish best represents your journey as an entrepreneur and why?
The only Indian dish that anybody can think of is biryani, right? There's a lot of elements mixed together, right? A lot of heat from underneath, which it has to take to turn into a beautiful, kind of thing.
I think you quite deserve it. If there was a startup Olympics, what sport or event would you win a gold in?
So the javelin throw.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I think for perseverance,
Yeah.
we've been on it for a long time.
Yeah.
So just space would be the time, and the javelin would be our team. So we've been hanging on and going on for a very long time.
Awesome. Because
But with startups, it would more be like the Paralympics, the Olympics.
In a parallel universe where you aren't an entrepreneur, what would you be doing?
That's a hard one. If I wasn't an entrepreneur, I'd still be. I think extension of an entrepreneur is what I would
Give
be.
me another profession.
Maybe an artist.
Artist?
Yeah, artist.
You like
Painter.
You like doing that?
Yeah, or
Awesome.
shairi.
Oh,
I would be a poet
yeah.
of sort. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Listen, that's great. I just want to end this piece on your some advice and stuff that you can give to budding entrepreneurs who are sort of tuning in for the channel. What would be like one piece of advice that you can give over to them?
So test your concept out, not with friends and family. Right? Test it out, not even with peers or people that you respect. Go out and create a very small marketing campaign, 500,000 rupees or dollars or whatever, and try to run it and see the response that you get. And then do a lot of research around it for a couple of days. Stay in your room and then think about giving it a name and doing something else. Also, second biggest advice that I want to give to anyone is avoid online mentors. Like you click on a YouTube video
Mm.
to understand analytics or your TAM or whatever, and you see this guy that comes and says, "Ke, I'm a business mentor. Are you a business owner that wants to expand their
Right.
business
Yeah, I've seen.
and want to delegate stuff? Do you know that?" Right? So if they were successful at what they're doing, would they be selling their course at 99 rupees
Right.
to you, right?
Yeah.
So they're still being salespeople.
Huh.
Don't get scammed. Don't waste your time. So I'd advise that, because
Awesome.
these guys don't want a lot in terms of actually getting you to be successful.
Awesome.
Most of them are sham.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
man.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, this has been a fantastic discussion. I really enjoyed it. I like, asking questions and perhaps really getting good insights from people and all that. So I'm happy you really opened your heart and shared a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching till the very end. We are so happy that we were able to have you guys come down and watch this episode, dedicate us a full 1 hour to it. What we really want to understand for the future is, what else do you want to see? What kind of assistance can we bring to you guys that will help you in your career paths? So please drop your questions, drop your feedback in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because we have so much content that is coming towards you in the near future. We'll see you soon again. Take care.